Welcome to Garden Valley Church Podcasts. We are so looking forward to having you join us today.
Welcome, everyone, to the Highway of Holiness podcast. I'm your host, Audrey Frabel, and I'm here again with my absolute most favorite guest. That is my husband, Curtis Frabel. I get you 2 times in a row.
Wow.
Yay. I might just keep you. I might just tie you up to the chair and not let you leave. We're keeping it clean.
You could have went the wrong way.
No, totally not going there. So I'm excited because I want to kind of talk a little bit more openly on this episode about marriage, also as, a saved marriage, a Christian marriage, a kingdom marriage. What does that look like? How have we done it? Let me first say this, that no 2 marriages are created equal, and the things we share, we are certainly not saying do it like us. So please don't hear that. In fact, that was a really big thing that we had to figure out, like, what is Curtis and Audrey's marriage look like, not so-and-so, or not the pastors or the people that are mentoring us or whomever it was, or the Beveres, John and Lisa Bevere. Like, who does Curtis and Audrey represent? What are we passionate about? What is our marriage to look like and destined to be? But out of that, like in the beginning, when we were both diving into the Lord and surrendering our lives, I learned very quickly a lot of things, actually I didn't learn. I was beginning to learn. It took me a while, but I wanted, as a younger believer and, passionate about us and family and marriage and all those things, I wanted us to go a certain way. And I expected, that's a better way to say it. I expected Curtis's walk and the way I expected him to respond to God like I was responding to God. And we are 2 very different people, right?
Yeah. It's an understatement.
Like opposites.
Yeah.
Totally opposite.
Complete.
Yeah. And the older we get, the more we realize, like, wow, we're so opposite. Which I often will say things, like, you're so much more spontaneous. I want things planned out. I got to talk about everything first. You're like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. I'll be like, I'm kind of thinking about, remodeling the fireplace. What would you say?
Let's do it. I'll
It's
go to
true.
Lowe's.
It's so true. You're like, you want to do it right now? And it's like 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, babe, that's like a 2-day project.
It's no time like the present.
And there are times when I'll be like, sure, let's do it. I mean, as I've gotten older, I'm like, no, let's not do that because it's going to be crazy. So we're absolute opposites. And one of the things, this is going to sound kind of funny, but this is part of my gifting. I am a seer, and in the Word of God, that is it's a prophetic call. Not to go too deep into that, but I get visions. So actually, in fact, soon after I gave my life to the Lord and Curtis got saved, I began having all of these visions, and I thought I was going crazy because we would go to church. The Lord would give me visions, and we would go to church, and He would show me what was going to happen. And I would be like, oh my gosh, babe, the Lord totally showed me that. I was like exhausting him. He's like, you're crazy. One time you said this, I don't know if you remember, but you're like, are you on acid? Do you remember that?
Oh.
Yes.
Pre-saved, right? It's pre-saved.
No, yeah. It was crazy. And I actually didn't know anything about the prophetic gift. And this was just happening. So all that to say, I finally began to understand, okay, there's a gift that the Lord has given me. And I've got to learn about it or I'm going to drive my husband crazy. And I still do. But one of the visions, I say that because I had this vision at the beginning of our journey with God. And I was probably, if I remember correctly, in a space of getting frustrated with Curtis because why isn't he responding to God like I am? Like, I want him to, I probably in the back of my mind was like, I want him to, be like me, like respond to God like me. Like, why aren't your hands up when my hands are up? I never thought that consciously, but I know looking back, like, I definitely had all these like expectations.
Wow.
I know, right? I'm being honest.
It's good.
So God gives me this vision. One day, I have this picture of two frogs, which is so weird. I don't know why I don't have any connection with frogs. So there's these two frogs, and they're like side by side, they're parallel. And the first frog like goes,
Boop, boop,
boop,
boop.
boop, boop. I have to put some sound effects to it. So it jumps forward. You can't see me. If you're listening, you won't be able to see me. If you're watching me, you'll have a little bit better understanding with because I'm using my hands. So the little frog is like boop, 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 jumps forward, like as you know, has all this energy and goes do 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 like real fast and leaves the other frogs standing like at this line, like if they were getting ready to like run a race. Yeah, that's what it looked like. The other frog, and I still remember this. It was like really big and buff, which is so funny because Curtis is big and buff.
Thank you.
So this frog has these huge like muscles in his legs, and I'm way ahead, and I look back at the other frog. I didn't notice at the time that this was actually Curtis and I, that the Lord was speaking to me. I just saw these two frogs like, what is this? This other frog waits like patiently, time goes by, and then he like looks around, and then he like squats down like one would do a big long jump in a track meet, and then he takes this huge leap, and then he lands like side by side to me. All of that to say, he lands side by side the other frog. I hope I'm making sense here, but all of that to say, the Lord was speaking to me about our walks, that they do not have to look the same. We don't have to be at the exact same place. Like I had to let go. Basically, the Lord was like, I need you to let go of my son and let him walk with me and let him explore me and, let me father my son and basically, step back. And that was a journey. In fact, even my pastor is mentoring me at the time. My female pastor was even speaking in my life about it. Like I needed to let go. I was controlling. And so those were things that we had to work on during that time. Again, in the last podcast, we talked about how, yes, we were saved, but we still had all of this baggage. And so is there anything you want to say about that before I go on to our baggage?
Say about the frogs?
Yeah, about like our own walks and.
No, I think that it's a great illustration, but it also is important to understand that allowing each other to have our own walks allows us to stumble and fall, but learn how to get back up on our own with our relationship with God, not on our own, but, with Him.
Yeah.
Where if one of us is relying on the other person, then there's really no growth that comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know for me, I've stumble and fall all the time. And I think that's what that representation is. And then I catch back up because I grow more in the Lord once I do falter. And it really takes a lot for me to strive to reach out, to get back in the Word or get with somebody or just grow on my own.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know if this is totally true. It seems to be true, but I remember, the counselor that we were seeing way back then had even hit on some of this and said, how we were so different and our personalities were different. And that was part of our personalities, that you were naturally wired a little bit more up and down. And I was naturally wired, opposite of that, where I'm constantly, I like have to grow, and I can't remember all the verbiage to that, but all of that to say, one is not better than the other. It's just the way God made us. And so we had to dig deep in a lot of different things. I mean, and I want to share like practical things. Some of you guys maybe already know this. I really hope married couples do listen to this because there's a lot of things we went through. Again, not to tell you this is how you do it, because there isn't one way. But there is a lot to learn about accepting one another's differences and allowing each other to be their own person. I'm not responsible for Curtis and his walk with the Lord, and I can't change him. I can only change me. So we began to dig, in different areas such as, okay, who are we? and some of that, some practical ways or personality tests. Of course, we had people speaking into our lives, but we also got counseling, and then we had to work through all of our baggage. But the thing is again, for some reason, I had this mindset of how it was supposed to look. And so I had to really get rid of that. Like I had all these ideas in my mind, in fact, about everything. I don't know why. I don't know if that's part of my wiring or what. Like, but I had all these ideas of like, what the weekend was going to look like, what our lives was going to look like, what our walk was going to look like, what we were going to be as this married couple in quote unquote ministry, or just all these things that I really had to like throw off and let go and just let God, like totally let God disciple Father Curtis, let God disciple Father me, and discover God for ourselves.
Yeah, I think what's important to talk about too is how during those times when you had all these ideas and you were always pitching these ideas and this is what I want it to be and this is what we should do on the weekends, it was kind of suffocating me and putting out my light because I always felt that I had to do what you wanted to do to make you happy. So I didn't really have my own walk per se. I didn't have my own visions or dreams for our family because everything was wrapped up in your vision.
Yeah.
So being able to understand that and separate the two has really helped us grow.
Yeah. And a counselor helped us a lot with that. And we would go to counseling together, but then there was quite a while where we went individually, which helped a ton.
Yeah, I think I went for over a year by myself.
Yeah, which helped a ton. And we each had our own, I'll just call it generational baggage. So things we brought into the marriage because we were both broken. And again, neither of us grew up in a godly home. So, there were times where it was tough. We were going through it. And we had no idea how to be married, resolve conflict, communicate, parent together, and then finances. That was the hardest thing for the longest time. Thank God we've gotten freedom in that area. I'm so glad we like never fight about money anymore. Jesus, don't let that happen anymore. Don't bring it back. And then there's also, the gift sets and the giftings. And I mean, I remember sitting at our dining room table years ago with another pastor. I remember Krista being there with us. And I remember you asking her kind of candidly about my gifting. Like, what is this all about, this prophetic gift? What does that mean? And the importance of knowing one another and our giftings, calling it out and supporting it. Let me say this. So a lot of people, because I am the louder, more, what's the word?
Dominant.
I don't like that word.
No, you're not dominant.
I'm just kidding.
I'm
No,
just
I
teasing
do
you.
tend to be dominant. It's fine.
You know what you want.
I
And
know
you're
what
not
I
afraid
want.
to voice it. And that's
Yeah.
great. It works great for us.
Yeah. So as a couple, though, I guess one way to say it, I've heard it say this way, is like I'm more of the face of us. So
And I'm fine with being behind the scenes.
yeah, that's what you do say. So all of that to say, though, what I want to say is like, he's amazing. He's so strong. He supports me in everything I do. And I know, if we're unique in that way, we're all called to be unique, but I think that is one way that makes us unique. It's not every day that there's a female with a public ministry in the lead with the husband, supporting her, behind her. In fact, there's some churches and people that would say it's not biblical, blah, 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 or who knows. But all of that to say, like, you're my biggest fan, and I know that, and I feel like so confident in that. And it's taken time. That didn't happen overnight. We've had to kind of figure that out. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
So I shared this on a Sunday, which I haven't spoke on a Sunday in a couple of years, so it's been a while. I don't remember if I saw this like in my prayer time or if I saw this somewhere else, but basically just in my walk with God, learning how to be a husband and a father because I'd never had that example. I'm doing everything from scratch. I'm doing the best I can, trying to learn as I go. I just remember an image of how a husband is supposed to be with his wife. And I remember it was like an umbrella opened, and the umbrella was the husband, and the wife was under the umbrella, and it was shielding her from just everything. Distractions. I don't even remember what. It was just, anything that could possibly cause you to stumble or fall. It was shielding you. And I found that to be my role. What God's called me to be for you is to be, your protector, to allow you to flourish and grow in where he wants you and has called you to be. And if I don't, I'm not trying to be like all chivalrous or whatever, but
Chauvinist.
yeah, because you can do all these things on your own. But if I'm not there as your husband to pray for you and cover you in prayer and, give you words of life when you're feeling down or whatever it might be, that's just what he has given me as my vision for you and our family. So it's just that image has always stuck with me. It's just I see you standing under this umbrella that's me, and it's allowing you to grow and become all he's called you to be. So that's where, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just know that he's shown me that.
I love it. You're our covering.
It's our job. It's the man's
is the
job
covering.
to
Yeah.
protect his wife and his kids.
Yeah. Number
Period.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if I've had like a picture, but I'm sure there was some point where it was like, I've got to lay down more of me, my dreams, all of the things that I want to do to serve you, because that is my number one duty. And of course, I always am working on that. But that's the wife's job as well, is to serve her husband, and it's mutual submission, according to the word. But and that brings me to, I think this is what I always stood upon, is 1 Peter 3:1, and most people that know me know this, but I've always stood upon this, and especially in the seasons when you weren't a believer yet, or maybe we were young in the Lord and it seemed like you were wavering or just not, strong in the Lord or whatever it was. I just stood on this. In the same way, you wives must accept the authority of your husbands. Then, even if some refuse to obey the good news, your godly lives will speak to them without any words. They will be won over by observing your pure and reverent lives. So this has always helped me with my mouth, or, again, trying to correct or control your walk or your behavior or whatever it is. I mean, obviously we've grown now where we do speak into each other's lives, but in those younger years, we didn't even know how to speak to each other or receive from each other at all. And so yeah, they were just, I just have to take it to the prayer room, but also in faith, stand upon, God and his word, and trust in this scripture, that if my husband's being disobedient, I'm going to stand upon him. I'm going to stand upon God and his word. And I can think of times, when you were a bit squirrely, where I remember praying. I remember the Lord. I don't know if you remember this. This was way back, like our first house. And, we're still working through things or whatever. But there were times when, something was going on. We're fighting or whatever. And the Lord would tell me his car's going to break down today. He's going to get a flat tire. I was like, oh, okay. It's funny because at the time I would think, why does the Lord tell? And sure enough, you would call that afternoon, I got a flat tire, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh boy.
Were you praying that?
I was just going to say, and I'm pretty sure prior to that, if you were being like super stubborn, I'm like, God, humble him. Hey, you can get mad at Matthew on that one, because Matthew, I think it was Matthew, maybe it wasn't, I don't know, where
Conversation with
But there were those times. And thinking back now, it was like, wow, that was really kind of the Lord to just give me a heads up on that and tell me that, yeah, he's probably not going to be very happy because he's going to get a flat tire.
good old days.
But sure enough, like there were those times when we would be going through it or it just it wasn't going well. And like time would extend, where we weren't talking and it was just nasty. And you would get like a flat tire. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like for me, it was also like, wow, God, you are like, you're so real and you're so sovereign and powerful. And it's like fear of the Lord would come over me like, whoa. But yeah. So anyways, I am so grateful that we're not children anymore. Thinking of all of that. And grateful for having people in our world and grateful that you have reached out to men, especially during those times. But I'm really grateful for, a church family for sure. Like you have to have a church family. And even if you are newer to the Lord or it's been hard in a church family, keep pressing in. Ask God, don't leave the church. You need the church. And there's been times where we both it's been hard. There's been seasons where it's harder to stay put, seasons where it's harder to press in. But stay in the family of God and work through those issues with whoever that person is in the body. Work to be at peace with everyone, actually, is what the word says, that, and as it is dependable upon you. Oh, having trouble talking today. So, yeah, is there anything else that comes to your mind?
No, not that I can think of.
The other thing, about like supporting one another is I'm so grateful that we don't tell each other what to do. I mean, there's definitely times where we will ask things of each other, but there's a lot of freedom. We have a lot of freedom in our relationship. We have trust. Mm-hmm. I think that's because we have trust. And there was a time where we didn't have trust. And so there was all this fear and control. And, that's not a fun way to live.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely each have our own hobbies and lives and, aspects of what we like to do, and then we're able to come together and share those with each other.
Yeah.
It's pretty important, I think, for the husband and the wife to be able to have the freedom to go to a church function or go have dinner with the girls, or if I go riding on Fridays with the guys, or as long as everything's talked about and communicated, there shouldn't be any controlling or holding back your spouse, because life's too short for that.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful, that you give me weekends away. You're so open to just take the kids and be Mr. Mom and let me get away. And, both sides of the coin. And sometimes that is actually harder for men, depending upon the kid factor and the home and all of that with, is going on. Sometimes that can be harder for men to do.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. You think the guys that you work with will all do that for their wives?
No. But I love my wife. I love my family. So why would I hold you back? Why would I stop you from having your own life or doing the things that make you happy? Why would I want you to be stuck at home and, not being able to live your life? Meanwhile, I'm outside of the house 4 or 5 days a week working with, hanging out with my guy friends and at work, and then come home and expect you to wait on me hand and foot. I mean, that's not how it was designed. That's not how it was intended to be. It's not how marriage is supposed to be. So I'm just a firm believer in not allowing you because you're a human.
Yeah.
You're my wife. And if you want to go have coffee with the girls, we've talked about it before, as long as we communicate with each other, we have a family shared calendar.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about things, things that are going to take all day. There's definitely that conversation, the mutual respect. Like if I
Yeah.
want to go riding up at Huckleberry or something and it's going to be an all day event, we'll talk about it. Hey,
Yeah.
does this work for you? And you can say, no, that doesn't work for me. And then, well, how about next Friday? Yeah, that works. And we make it work for both of us. But if it's like, there's been several times where I come home from work and you're like, hey, can I go have coffee with so and so in the morning on
Yeah.
my day off? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have fun. Go to dinner. Go hang out with your girls.
Yeah.
As a wife and a mother who's trapped at home. I mean, you're not technically trapped at home, but
There's seasons where it feels
when
like
you're
that.
raising kids,
Yeah,
a lot
or you
of
got a
times
baby.
you're
Yeah.
at home. You're
Yeah.
taking care of the house, and it's important for you to get away and get that freedom and get that relief and stress-free environment where you can just let loose.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important, and I think that all women should be allowed to do that, and men too. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, here's something else that shifted, I don't know how long ago, is the idea and the truth that we are called to make each other better. Like we're called to be each other's biggest fans, pull out the dreams in one another and make each other better. I mean, that's one of my things is I want to pull you out of your 9 to 5 so you can be free from that daily crazy commute primarily, but just a free man that still has lots of things to do, business ventures, and fully capable and able to do.
you better buy a lottery ticket.
Lottery ticket. We're taking donations today on the podcast. No, just kidding. Yeah, making each other better. And in fact, I remember one time, this was years ago, where I wanted to leave again. I realized over the years I have something in me. I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's just my flesh and it's a human thing. The thing in me was to hit the eject button, to leave. I want to get out of this. So it's like this, I guess, like an unfaithful thing. Not that, I mean, I've really seen myself that way, but there were definitely times where I wanted to leave. Like when it gets hard, I want to leave. And the Lord, would always put his finger on me like, nope, you're not. I didn't say you could do that. And so on that note, also walking out lordship, which is definitely living a life of holiness, is not just Jesus and God being someone who just meets your needs and gives you gifts like a puppet on a string, but he's actually Lord, and a lot of times Christians don't make him Lord, or we say he is, but maybe we're not really living that out. And I'm guilty too. I mean, I'm not judging anybody. But all that to say, learning how to stay committed, whether it is in the marriage or whether it's in the church or, whatever that looks like. But there's another thought I was going to say, and I lost my train of thought. Oh, I remember what it was, where the Lord put his finger on me about my call to you. And I can't remember like the exact words, but it was just it was just such a sovereign moment where I just remember him like you're my number one call. Like everything was burned in me that day, whatever he said to me, but it was more on the revelation that nothing else matters. Nothing is more important in this life than you, other than my walk with God. And he's reminded me of that many times, but this was years ago. And so that really shifted my whole brain that day, again, growing up in more of a kind of a me mindset where honestly, again, I love my mom. She's a great servant. She has a servant heart, but she waited on us hand and foot. Like I never did a load of laundry until
I had to teach you how to do laundry.
Yeah, Curtis taught me how to do laundry.
Load the dishwasher.
I was like 20, I think, maybe. I know I wasn't 21 yet because I was using a fake ID. It's getting real today. Had my friend's fake ID or her real ID, but she had brown hair and brown eyes. And so I was using it and I got caught too. So it didn't work well for me. I tried to
It's
be
the Lord looking out for you.
I know. I tried to be a rebel. I tried to have a season of being a rebel and it didn't go well for me. You're like, let me share.
Should
I know
start
where you're
sharing my
going.
stories? We've only been together for 23 years.
I know. Oh my gosh. Are you serious?
99.
Yeah, we were high school sweethearts. I think a lot of people know that, but I shouldn't assume that people that know us are listening to this podcast. So, which is kind of cool because,
We've been through it.
yeah.
Teenage years,
Uh-huh.
mid 20s, early 30s. Now we're 40.
Now we're old.
Gray hair and all.
Yeah, I do. I found white hairs right after my 40th birthday. I found like 3 different ones.
You want a couple of mine?
Yeah, I see those. They look good on you though.
Thanks.
They look like wisdom.
Wisdom.
It's different for a female. It's got long dark hair and then there's like 2 white hairs just poking out the front. I'm like, wow, this is fun. Hello, 40.
Wisdom. You have less wisdom than I do, though.
Thanks, babe.
I have less gray hair.
Oh, so yes, learning how to walk out your holiness and discovering what that looks like as a married woman. I at one point called it our Project 30s because when we got into our 30s, it was like we had to go back through everything and like start over because we came into the marriage with baggage. And the point in that is get healed and whole before you get married. So you don't have to do it
Man.
with a house full and children in front of you, or you're like, yeah, I have all these wounds and horrible ideas of whatever. I don't know how to parent, and I don't know how to be a wife, and I'm grateful for the Bible.
Gonna start singing it?
No.
It's in their song.
Yes. I'm grateful for the word because I had no idea how to be a wife or who I was. I mean, we're always still discovering who we are, but there are so many times just reading the word. I mean, still do this, but it's like, oh, wow. Okay. I'm supposed to, oh, that's what a godly wife looks like. Oh, that's what, reverence means. I'm called to revere my husband and honor him and submit to him and respect him. But what about when he's not respectable? Then what? I'm still called to respect him. So all these conversations I've had with the Lord. I remember one time being ticked at you. I was doing laundry and I'm ticked at you long time ago. And I was so mad and I'm trying to pray for you because that's the right thing to do. So I'm like, I'm so mad, but I'm like, Jesus, I just pray. And I'm trying to like almost perform like this prayer, even though it was just him and I, but I'm just mad. I'm not really being honest with God. And I say something such as, like, what do you see inside of Curtis's heart? Like, cause that's what I'm supposed to ask him. But I think I said something like, cause I don't see anything good right now. Or something like that. And the Lord was like, I don't see bad things. Because I was like, well, he's lying to me. And the Lord's like, I don't see lies. My son's forgiven. And I was like, huh? And I had such a shift that day in my thinking and the way I saw you and realized that I was agreeing with the enemy, and seeing you basically almost unsaved. Because no matter how you're acting or behaving, God still sees you as holy. He still sees you as your son. Yeah, you're his son, and he still sees you as cleansed and forgiven and pure, and he loves you. He doesn't see your sins, right? And so I had to totally rewire my thinking, how I see you, and my vision, and yeah. So
I had a similar, I think I've told you this. I had a similar experience. It was when we were going through it, and all I could think about was all the things that you didn't do or that you were bad at, or, all the things I didn't like about you. And I very clearly remember hearing him say, stop focusing on all the things you don't like and focus on the things that you do like. And I'm like, what? There's nothing. Like, everything she's doing is. And then, he would say, well, what about this? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good. He'd say, just focus on that one thing. And then I just remember as my prayer time, my days progressed, he would constantly show me more things that he sees in you that you weren't doing, but just who you were. And shifted my perspective as a husband from, you don't do anything for me, and, I want to be with somebody else because they'll do this or that or whatever the case may be. And he had shifted my thinking to just concentrate on all the things that you do like and let
Wow.
the things that you don't like just fade away.
Wow.
And they did.
Wow.
So
That's
similar experience.
That's powerful. I'm thinking of, how we've walked this out, in response to what you just said. I have been on the receiving end of that, and I've also been on the giving end of that in the context of love. Like love, that's how a holy marriage really is to look, like to be set apart and to walk in love and light. Like his love is holy. It's not a worldly love. It's unconditional love. So when we partner with his holy love, we give that away. Primarily, it should be right here. It should be overflowing. If we're receiving it from him, then we're overflowing onto our spouse. And I'm thinking about how that love conquers all and transforms, and it humbles us. Because I can think of, seasons where I wasn't at my best. Like, for example, when Jax was born. And I just remember I was such a mess. I was going through depression and just all kinds of things. I just felt helpless, and I felt like I was just falling apart. I just felt like I was at my worst. But I do remember you showing up like day after day and just loving me unconditionally. And I remember, and I think I probably even told you this at times where it's just like, you're being too good to me. Like, I don't deserve this. And I was humbled by the love that you were showing me. And yeah, humbled by the way you were showing up. I didn't expect it. And, you naturally have, I believe, such a servant heart. I feel like you shift into serving better than I do anyhow. But I was just so humble in that season. So all that to say, like, love ministers to us more than anything. Like, if we want to change our spouse, just love the poop out of them.
Well, because he is love, right?
Yes.
And our marriage is supposed to resemble that.
Yes.
So if you're not loving your spouse, then you're not letting God love you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not listening to Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
because Jesus is love.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I can think of times, yeah, it's so true. And I can think of times where you've bought me gifts, not all that long ago, like expensive gifts, where it's wrecked me, and it's ministered to me in a way where it's shown me places in me that I felt unworthy. Like, whoa, I don't feel like I deserve this. I don't want it. Like, I don't deserve it, but it's ministered to me.
She is love. I'm called to love you. I do love you.
I'm called to love you.
So that's how our marriage can resemble him.
Yeah.
And that's how we can be an example to others, is through how we love each other.
Yes. This is why I'm so passionate about the revelation, and I'm going to say the truth, that I'll say it this way, a holy or a whole, which is really a very similar word there, because holiness is about living out a whole life in Jesus and living in oneness with the Holy Spirit. But a family that is whole and in love with Jesus is going to save the world. A whole godly family. Godly families are going to lead this nation back to God. Like, that's how we win people back to God. It's going to be in the home. It's going to be families. I so believe that with all of my being, because it starts in the home. Everything starts in the home. We can't send our kids to church to find God. That's not going to work, because they're going to leave home and resent home because it wasn't real. If we're not living it out, if we, of course, you can take that a couple different ways, but if we're not first modeling it in our home and giving them the reality of a life living for God and what that looks like. Not perfect. That doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. It means that we continue to chase after him. I mean, we do this, I think, pretty well. You probably do. I mean, I've seen you do this well, is repent when we mess up with our kids to them. I've seen you do it time and time again, especially with our daughter. And it actually, that ministers to me too, because I didn't have that with my dad. I loved my dad, but my dad worked a lot and I lacked a lot of things from my dad because he wasn't there. So I love seeing that with you in Haven. I've seen you repent. And we try to walk that out and model it regularly in our home when we mess up with our kids, when we lose it on them or whatever. So, I mean, I think that is, we're talking about holiness. I think that is something that is uncommon. I wouldn't guess that we would see that in the world. I know I grew up in the world and we didn't do that in my home.
I don't think I was ever apologized to as a kid.
Yeah. I don't remember being apologized to. I remember, things happening like, we would call them volcanoes, like people getting upset with each other, which is normal in a godly home and a not godly home where we are human, but people losing it on each other in our home. And then it never came back. Like we just went, slam doors, whatever. And then it was never talked about again. It just went underneath the rug. And I don't remember talking about anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, for dads, there's so much pressure and there's so much of that we need to be an example. You and I were talking about this the other night, how a child's view of God comes from their father. A child's relationship with God comes from their father. And I heard it, I don't know if it was you or I listened to somewhere they said that often the voice that they hear God in is their father's voice.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I don't know how
before.
true that is, but I
maybe
heard it
did
on
say
a
I
sermon
remember.
somewhere. And actually, I would love to do a podcast on how much, fathers are, there's not a lot of stuff out there for dads.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about the pressure and the stress and how much is actually put on dads.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem is so many guys grew up without dads that they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And so that's what creates the unholiness in a marriage or a family, and why the dads end up leaving is because they don't know how to do it. And I don't know, I just want to say before we're done, I just want to give hope to the fathers and husbands. I know it's a marriage thing that we're doing, that just because you didn't have an example, when I was praying a lot, I heard the Lord tell me, because I was complaining and whining about, well, I didn't have a dad. I didn't see how a man treats a woman when we were going through our stuff. And he said, how long are you going to use that as an excuse? I mean,
Wow.
that was like one of the few times I've heard him audibly, he's,
Wow.
how long are you going to keep using that as an excuse?
Wow.
And it was like, what? No, you're not listening to me. He's like, yeah, I am. So, I just want men to know that there is hope, that they can lead their family with their wives into a holy marriage, and to not give up, to find help, be mentored from afar, find books, find people, podcasts, whatever. But it really does start in the home, and it does start with husband and wife. And we're called to love, to create that environment for our children to grow and flourish.
Is there anything that you would say, this is coming to my mind? So I don't know, maybe there's some listening right now or will listen to this podcast, to men, husbands that are, and maybe fathers too, that are like on the fringe of either leaving or they've already left. I don't know. Honestly, I'm thinking of men that have maybe left, or they've just really, they're just struggling. They're on the verge of giving up on doing family because it's so hard, or they already have given up, or maybe their wife said, I'm done, and kicked them out or something like that.
I would say such a hard place to be because I've been put in that situation, but I never walked out. So there was just a fight in me because I grew up without a father to not allow my children to grow up without a father. And so I would say that if you've left, go home. If you're thinking about leaving, stay for nothing more than those kids.
Yeah.
And then find a counselor.
Yeah.
I sought a counselor. I'm telling you, it was probably, you said it was a couple years. It was probably, I know for a fact it was a year by myself, twice a month, just working my stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tough and it was hard and life's hard. And I don't have the mercy gift. And it is a gift and I don't have it. So I'm more straight and narrow where it's like, go home, stand up, be a man, be the father that the kids need, work on your relationship with your spouse, pray daily, and get some help.
Yeah. And you can't do it without God.
And you can't do it alone. I mean, guys I have a passion for men, but men don't.
Just speak it. Be you.
Men don't reach out. Like, men don't want accountability, it seems like. So it's almost made me kind of disheartened and kind of like I thought that this was my lane, but it's not open. So guys need to get help. And there's always somebody out there who's willing to help. I know of you and I know how many guys that have helped us.
Yeah.
And so
true.
it's not manly to not want help. It's not manly to think you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
So find
It
somebody.
seems like it. There's a lie that says that, though.
Yeah, there is. I believed it for a long time.
Yeah.
I thought, no, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm a man. No, you're not. You're still a child. Honestly, because if you think you don't need anybody, then you haven't grown up yet.
Yeah. And the whole soft thing, like, God is not soft.
No.
And he's certainly not soft on sin. Certainly not soft on
I
sin.
think at the time when he was in the temple and overturning tables and making whips, I mean, get some help.
Yeah.
Find somebody to lock arms and fight with. And be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest.
And let the person you've asked to speak into your life be tough on you. And don't run away when they do give you some tough counsel. And it's hard and it hurts. I've been cut on and it is hard, but I'm so grateful for the people we had in our life that were tough on us because we were tough and we needed it. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for their cutting and their toughness.
I got cut on by 2 pastors that don't play games.
That are real and men's men. Yeah. I remember hearing, pastors talk straight to me, like cuss at me. And I was like, whoa, pastors cuss? Like, whoa, this is different.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a tough one. And yeah, so all that to say, I guess we can just pray it out and wrap it up. Maybe you should do a men's podcast.
I want to. One of these days.
Men sharpening men.
Yeah.
That's too common.
Yeah.
No.
They always talk about that. I want something to, like, the stuff that people don't talk about.
Yeah.
Like men that are stressing and the pressure and, like I said, all the relationships with God that your children have. And there's just a lot that isn't being spoken.
When you're trying to do everything you can, but there's this internal struggle and you're carrying the weight of working and supporting and providing.
And you are the image of God to your children. I mean, you're not God, but you're how they relate. I mean, there's so much pressure to that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, our God filter is our earthly father. So however our earthly that relationship with our earthly father. So my relationship with my earthly father was distant and kind of disconnected. So for the longest time I saw God as distant.
And I didn't have a dad, so I still struggle with connection.
Yeah.
And I struggle with, you telling me, well, the kids view you like this. And I don't see it. I don't feel it. I don't know it.
That you're their hero.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of that nobody talks about, especially in this fatherless generation.
Everybody needs it. And everybody's crying out for a father, a mom, and a dad. All right. So Jesus, right now, we just thank you for every single listener. God, I pray for the men. I pray for marriages. I pray that you would continue to speak, God, to men and women, and you would raise the bar. You would raise the bar. People would reach out. Even listeners listening today would reach out, God. And right now you would show them who to reach out to, and get real about your stuff, what you're struggling with, and be honest, like Curtis said. And I prophesy breakthrough. I prophesy breakthrough right now to you. I prophesy breakthrough over marriages, marriages that might be on the fringe or feeling like giving up. I prophesy hope to you right now, and the truth that it can be better, that things can be different. But both of you guys have to want it, and both of you guys have to lay everything on the table and both go all in for one another and be all in for the marriage, for it to work. And so I just prophesy hope, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're interested in checking out more of our podcasts as they come available, please download our app in your device's app store or check us out on your podcast platform at Garden Valley Church. We look forward to seeing you next time.